I call the summer of 1980 my cowboy summer. Waylon and Willie reigned. Country was the new pop. I was living in Vancouver, and I jumped the fence, as I like to put it, and took the summer off. Drank a lot of tequila, wrote cowboy songs, got to know a few different ladies. A guy who was so close to me we called each other partners was involved with a French woman, Parisienne French, who was truly wild. I'd gotten to know her myself at one point, and if for the sake of this story I may call my partner Commander, then I have to say that she and the Commander seemed well suited. And one night I met a lady down at the Blarney Stone in Gastown who I'd known just 8 months earlier in Ottawa, a whole nother story, where she had, in fact, gone out with the Commander for a brief time. We had a classic summer, her and me. I was her bear and she was my possum, a nickname I shortened to Paws. She had a baby blue 1963 T-Bird and she made me her driver. It was a summer of late nights, drive-in movies, barroom fights, long driving trips, gold panning, adventure and romance. I could tell you a dozen different stories from the summer of 1980. But for now, well, one day I guess me and the Commander must have decided it would be a good idea to go out to the interior and pick fruit, make a little money. This must have been late summer because the fruit we ended up picking was apples. Paws and the Frenchwoman stayed behind at the coast, so me and the Commander were on our own. I still have my farm worker's ID paper from that summer somewhere in an old suitcase, like you need a little green, or was it pink, slip of paper to declare you fit to pick apples. It was cool, though, sort of made me feel like an immigrant in my own country, so that I actually felt like I was in some foreign place, if you get what I mean. It made the experience of working farm labor even a little bit exotic. At first, me and the Commander pitched a tent on the property where we were working, getting $10 a crate, making $50 a day each if we worked real hard, and going into town every night to drink beer and, well, drink beer. Oh yeah, and ride the wild bull. But wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. The bar we haunted was called Angie's, and down at Angie's there was one of those big mechanical bulls that had become so popular since that Travolta movie. We would stand at the bar and drink and talk, just hanging around spending money, waiting for a certain bit of eye candy in painted-on blue jeans, red satin cowboy shirt, no bra, red leather cowboy boots with those clear plastic heels to stroll over, mount the bull, lift her straw cowboy hat high over her head, shake out her long blonde hair, and take a ride on the lowest, slowest setting, and that was pretty damn slow. Slinky slow. She would gaze around the room with glazed, bored-looking blue eyes as every man in the place went wild, and some of the ladies, too. Some of them yelled like Confederate rebels. Some howled like wolves and coyotes. Others whooped like Indians in an old western, and some of us just stood there and groaned like huge, top-heavy trees about to collapse under our heavy loads. Sex in stirrups. She would take that ride maybe 3 times a night, and boy, that girl sold a lot of beer. Also, every time she got off that bull, there'd be a lineup of guys waiting their turn to ride it, get it cranked right up to the highest legally allowed setting, gonna work off some of what that girl got them all full of. When I talk about the settings on the bull, well, it went right up to 10, but they weren't allowed to let anyone ride anything more than a 7. Too many guys were getting hurt. Even at 7, a lot of guys got thrown. Well, one night, the Commander went home early. By this time, we had a motel room about 2 miles from Angie's bar, and I stayed behind to drink a little more beer. I was at the bar wearing my jeans and boots, my beat-up old brown hat, and this 3/4-length brown tweed duster type of coat that I'd found in my grandparents' attic, once belonged to my Uncle Peter, who disappeared in 1954, a whole nother story. And I had a full beard that must have completed the effect. I looked like a member of the James Gang. I was standing, hunched over a beer, when I was approached by a suit and tie man who told me he had money riding on me. I asked him what he meant, and he said, "Well, when you ride the bull, I bet money that you won't get thrown off." I looked down kind of shyly, shook my head, and snorted a short laugh through my nose. He looked a little closer at me and said, "You are a circuit rider, aren't you? You ride real bulls, don't you?" Time for a quick decision. "You got a good eye, mister. Me and my partner are circuit riders from up north, but we weren't planning on riding that mechanical bull." Long story short, he talked me into taking a ride on the bull. Might have had something to do with the free beer he offered me. Might have had something to do with the eye candy who'd been in my dreams for some nights running. I asked Derek, the guy who operated the bull, to go easy on me. He said he would, and then he gave me a 7 and tried every way he could to throw me. I think they go for 7 seconds, and I stayed on for the whole ride. My suit and tie friend bought me a glass and talked me into riding again, and pretty soon I was having so much fun I didn't need to be asked. I don't know how much money changed hands that night. I only know I didn't see any of it, only free beer and blisters. But man, I was good. I went back to the motel that night and told the commander all about it, told him he had to try it the next night. He hedged at first until I told him that he and I were now known down at Angie's bar as circuit riders from up north. I'd even told the folks at Angie's our names, Cliff and Biff Eastwood. So the next night was the night that Cliff and Biff Eastwood, circuit riders from up north, rode the wild bull at Angie's all night long, free rides, free beer, Derek unable to throw us. And then we talked Derek into pushing the setting past 7. Apparently someone had been thrown so bad he broke his neck or an arm or something, so it took about an hour of our constant harassment to finally get him to give us a 9. Besides, I guess old Derek was bound and determined to throw one or both of us after we'd ridden everything he could throw at us. But even so, a 10 was out of the question. He didn't want to kill us or get sued. Well, I pulled on my gloves, climbed up, raised my hat over my head, and rode that bull for the full 7 seconds while Derek at the controls made the machine buck and twist and spin and dip. The wildest ride I ever had. Not too bad for a skinny poet guitar strummer from Vancouver. The commander stayed on too, and that was a thing to see. Watching him up there, I was all that much more impressed with myself. Man, we were good. You could pick up a bumper sticker at the bar that said, "I rode the wild bull at Angie's." Me and the commander each got one, and we got Derek to print number 9 on each one and sign his name beside it. I still have that old bumper sticker in a suitcase somewhere. No, we never got anywhere near the eye candy. Anyway, I started out saying I was only going to tell you the one story, and then look what I did. I went and told you some other story besides the one I wanted to tell you, so now I guess you'll get 2 stories. See, later on, the commander and the Frenchwoman decided to go to L.A. to live forever, so it was just me and Paws back in Vancouver again. And I don't mean to give Paws the short end here. She's a whole story all by herself, but that just isn't the story I started out to tell tonight. Well, one day, a few weeks after the commander left town, I took a drive out to Grand Forks to visit my mom. About a 6-hour drive if you stick to the limit, more like 5 or a little less the way I used to drive. I sat at Mom's kitchen table and had a beer and visited for all of 15 minutes and suddenly said to her, "I have to go back. The commander's home." So I got in the car and drove back to Vancouver, getting to my house late at night. There was no message from him, so I wrote a note on a piece of paper that said, "I'm down at Bud's," and I stuck the note to my front door with my knife. Went down to Bud's Good Eats and ordered myself a plate of nachos and beer, and after about an hour, in walks the commander, hands me my knife. That's where this one ends, with me and the commander sitting at a bar in downtown Old Vancouver, our heads together, speaking in person after earlier that day having communicated over 320 miles without speaking a word. I remember Chico let us run a tab that night of $80, which back then was a hell of a lot of tequila and beer.